Picture yourself staring at your bank account balance, watching that pathetic number mock you from your phone screen. Maybe it's $73.42. Maybe it's $216 if you're having a good month. Either way, that first $1,000 feels about as achievable as climbing Mount Everest in flip-flops. Meanwhile, some financial guru on the internet is telling you that once you hit $10,000, the next 10,000 comes twice as fast, and you're thinking, yeah, right, tell that to my credit card bill. Well, here's the thing that's going to blow your mind. That financial guru isn't lying to you. In fact, they're not even telling you the whole truth about how dramatically easier it gets. The psychology and mathematics behind why your first $1,000 is exponentially harder than your next 10,000 isn't just some feel-good motivation. It's cold, hard science that most people never understand, which is exactly why they stay broke their entire lives. My name is Nick, and I spend way too much time thinking about why some people effortlessly build wealth, while others work their entire lives and have nothing to show for it. Like, if you're tired of feeling like you're running on a financial treadmill, getting nowhere despite all your effort, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because we're about to dive deep into the psychological warfare happening in your brain every time you try to save money. Okay? Before we get into the brutal mathematics that prove this point, let me ask you something. When you think about wealthy people, what do you picture? Maybe someone who never struggled with money, someone who just naturally understood how to save and invest, someone who was born with some special financial gene that you clearly missed out on. Here's the truth that's going to sting a little. The difference between people who build wealth and people who don't has almost nothing to do with how much money they make and everything to do with understanding the invisible psychological forces working against them. Your brain is literally wired to sabotage your financial success. And I'm not being dramatic here. Neuroscientists have studied this extensively. There's something called temporal discounting, which is just a fancy way of saying your brain values immediate rewards way more than future benefits. Think about it this way. Your brain sees spending $50 on dinner tonight as incredibly appealing, but saving that same $50 for some abstract future version of yourself feels about as exciting as watching paint dry. But here's where it gets really interesting. The same psychological mechanism that makes saving your first $1,000 feel impossible is exactly what makes the next $10,000 feel effortless once you understand how to work with it instead of against it. We're going to break down the exact mental barriers keeping you stuck and show you how to turn your brain from your biggest financial enemy into your most powerful wealth building tool. The first barrier you're fighting is what psychologists call the house money effect. Your brain literally treats money differently depending on how you got it. Money you earned from your regular job feels heavy, important, difficult to part with. But money you found in your pocket from last week's jeans or your tax refund or that $20 your grandmother slipped you at Christmas, that money feels different. Your brain categorizes it as play money, and you're way more likely to blow it on something stupid. This is why most people never build wealth despite earning decent incomes. They're mentally categorizing their money in ways that sabotage their own success. Every dollar should be treated the same, regardless of where it came from, but your brain is constantly playing these weird accounting tricks that keep you broke. Then, there's the money scripts buried deep in your subconscious. These are beliefs about money that got programmed into your head when you were a kid, and they're running your financial life, whether you realize it or not. Maybe you grew up hearing your parents argue about money, so now your brain associates having money with conflict and stress. Maybe you heard things like, we can't afford that so often, that your brain genuinely believes you're not the type of person who gets to have nice things. Or maybe you grew up in a household where money was never discussed at all, so you developed this weird shame around even thinking about building wealth, like wanting financial security somehow makes you greedy or shallow. These invisible scripts are making financial decisions for you every single day, and most people go their entire lives without ever realizing they're there. Here's the really messed up part. Your brain has been evolutionarily programmed to keep you alive, not to make you wealthy. For thousands of years, the humans who survived were the ones who grabbed immediate resources when they were available because there was no guarantee those resources would still be there tomorrow. Your brain is still operating with this ancient software that prioritizes instant gratification over long-term planning. So when you're trying to save money, you're literally fighting against millions of years of evolutionary programming. Your brain is screaming at you to spend that money now on something tangible and immediate, because what if there's no food tomorrow? What if the shelter disappears? What if this opportunity never comes again? It's completely irrational in our modern world, but your brain doesn't know that. This is why building that first $1,000 feels like such a monumental battle. You're not just fighting your circumstances or your income level, you're fighting your own biology. Every time you choose to save money instead of spending it, you're going against every instinct your brain has developed over millennia. And your brain is going to fight you every step of the way, right? But here's where the story gets interesting. Once you hit certain psychological thresholds, something magical happens. Your brain stops seeing saving as deprivation and starts seeing it as achievement. The same psychological mechanisms that were working against you suddenly flip and start working for you. The research on this is absolutely fascinating. There's something called self-efficacy, which is basically your belief in your own ability to succeed at something. When you have $0 saved, the idea of having $10,000 feels completely impossible. Your brain can't even picture it happening, so it doesn't try. But once you hit your first $1,000, something clicks. Your brain suddenly has proof that you're the type of person who can save money. This isn't just feel-good psychology. This is measurable, documented behavior change. People who successfully save their first $1,000 are exponentially more likely to save their next $1,000 than people who have never saved anything. It's like your brain rewrites its entire story about who you are and what you're capable of. And here's where the mathematics start getting really interesting. That first $1,000 is almost entirely dependent on your behavior and your ability to spend less than you earn. But once you have money saved, compound growth starts doing work for you. Even at modest returns, your money begins earning money, which earns more money, which earns even more money. Yes, let me show you exactly how this works with real numbers that are going to change how you think about every financial decision you make for the rest of your life. Let's say you decide to save just $100 every single month. I know, you're probably thinking $100 might as well be $100,000 when you're looking at your current budget. But stick with me here because the math is about to get absolutely wild. At $100 per month, it takes you exactly 10 months to save your first $1,000. 10 months of saying no to things you want. 10 months of feeling like you're making zero progress. 10 months of your friends thinking you've lost your mind because you won't go out to eat anymore. Those 10 months feel like an eternity because your brain is constantly reminding you of all the stuff you could be buying instead. But here's where things start getting interesting. That same $100 per month, after you've already got some money working for you, starts behaving completely differently. Let's say you keep saving that $100 monthly, but now you're earning a conservative 7% annual return on your investments. Nothing crazy, just basic stock market returns that have been happening for decades. Your second $1,000 takes about 9 months instead of 10. Your brain barely notices this difference, but the pattern has already started. So your third $1,000 takes 8.5 months. Your fourth $1,000 takes just under 8 months. By the time you're working on your $10,000, it's taking you less than 6 months to save each additional $1,000. But this is where most people's brains explode because we're not just talking about the time it takes anymore. We're talking about the fact that your money is literally working harder than you are while you're sleeping, while you're at your day job complaining about your boss, while you're binge watching Netflix. Your investments are out there making money. By the time you hit $10,000 saved and invested, something absolutely mind-blowing happens. Your investments start generating enough returns that They're doing a significant portion of the heavy lifting. At 7% annual returns, your $10,000 is earning about $700 per year without you doing anything. That's like getting almost 2 months of your $100 monthly savings for free. Now, your brain starts to get it. You start checking your investment account balance, not with dread, but with genuine excitement. Like you start seeing those monthly gains and thinking, holy crap, this is actually working. The same psychological mechanisms that made saving feel impossible are now making saving feel addictive. This is when people start doing things that seem crazy to their broke friends. They start looking for ways to increase their monthly savings. They start getting excited about tax refunds, not because they can blow the money on something fun, but because they can dump it into their investments and watch it grow. They start seeing expensive dinners not as treats they deserve, but as opportunities they're giving up. Your brain has completely rewired itself. Instead of seeing saving as deprivation, you start seeing spending as the thing that's depriving you of your future wealth. This psychological flip is so powerful that people often describe it as life-changing, like they finally understand a secret that everyone else is missing. And here's the really beautiful part. The more money you have working for you, the less dependent you become on your own contributions. Remember, we started with you saving $100 per month, which felt impossible, but when you have $50,000 invested at 7% returns, that money is earning about $3,500 per year on its own. That's almost 3 times your entire annual savings contribution happening automatically. At this point, you could literally stop saving new money entirely and your wealth would continue growing. But most people don't stop. They get so excited by watching their net worth climb that they start saving even more aggressively. They realize they're not just building money, they're building freedom. The psychology gets even more interesting when you understand what money really represents. Most people think money is about buying stuff, but wealthy people understand that money is about buying choices. Like when you have zero savings, you have zero financial choices. You take the job you can get, not the job you want. You live where you can afford, not where you want to live. You make decisions based on what you can afford this month, not what's best for your future. But when you have $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 saved, you suddenly have options. You can take risks that broke people can't afford to take. You can quit a job that's making you miserable because you have a buffer. You can invest in yourself, start a business, or take advantage of opportunities that require upfront capital. This is why wealthy people say the first 100,000 is the hardest to save. It's not just about the compound interest, though that's certainly part of it. It's about the psychological transformation that happens when you prove to yourself that you're capable of building wealth. Your entire relationship with money changes. Most people never experience this transformation because they give up during those brutal first 10 months. They look at their pathetic savings account balance and think, this isn't working. They don't realize they're literally months away from the psychological breakthrough that would change their entire financial trajectory. The people who push through those first few $1,000s discover something that seems almost magical, but is actually just mathematics and psychology working together. They discovered that building wealth isn't about making huge sacrifices forever. It's about making small sacrifices temporarily until compound growth takes over and starts doing most of the work. But here's what nobody talks about when they're explaining compound interest. The real power isn't just in the mathematical growth. The real power is in how it changes your behavior once you see it working. People who successfully build wealth don't just save money and forget about it. They become obsessed with optimization. They start looking for ways to increase their income specifically so they can invest more. They start paying attention to fees and tax implications because they realize those seemingly small differences compound over decades. They start making financial decisions based on their future wealth rather than their current circumstances. This behavioral change is so profound that it often affects every area of their life. They become more intentional about how they spend their time because they understand that time and money are connected. They start thinking long term about everything, not just their finances. Meanwhile, their broke friends are still making the same financial decisions they made 5 years ago, wondering why nothing ever changes. They're still buying lunch every day because it's only $8. They're still financing cars they can't afford because the monthly payment seems manageable. They're still living paycheck to paycheck despite getting multiple raises because they've never learned the difference between looking wealthy and actually being wealthy. The really frustrating part is watching these same friends complain about money constantly while doing absolutely nothing to change their situation. They'll spend $40 on drinks, they'll pee out in 3 hours, then claim they can't afford to save $20 a month. They'll buy a $1,000 phone on a payment plan, then say investing is too risky. The cognitive dissonance is absolutely stunning. But here's something that's going to make you either laugh or cry, depending on your current situation. The average American spends more money on coffee in a year than they have in their emergency fund. Let that sink in for a minute. People are literally more committed to their caffeine addiction than they are to their financial security. And then they wonder why they feel anxious about money all the time. This isn't about shaming people for buying coffee, by the way. This is about understanding that small financial decisions compound just like investments do, except they compound in the wrong direction. That $5 latte every weekday adds up to $1,300 a year. $1,300 that disappears forever, providing nothing but temporary satisfaction and a mild energy boost. Now imagine if that same $1,300 went into investments earning 7% annually. After 10 years, it would be worth over $18,000. After 20 years, it would be worth over $53,000. That daily coffee habit literally costs you $53,000 in future wealth. Suddenly, making coffee at home doesn't seem like such a sacrifice, does it? But this is where most financial advice completely misses the point. Financial experts love to shame people about their spending habits without understanding the deeper psychological issues at play. They'll tell you to skip the lattes and bring lunch to work, but they won't explain why your brain is so resistant to these changes or how to actually make them stick. The truth is, most people's spending isn't about the money at all. It's about emotion. They're buying lunch because they hate their job, and that 20-minute break feels like the only good part of their day. They're buying clothes they don't need because shopping gives them a temporary hit of dopamine in an otherwise depressing routine. They're going out to bars because they're lonely, and spending money feels like the only way to have a social life. Understanding this is crucial because you can't solve an emotional problem with a mathematical solution. Telling someone who's buying happiness to just stop spending money is like telling someone who's drowning to just stop getting wet. It completely misses the underlying issue. This is why the first $1,000 is so psychologically challenging. You're not just changing your spending habits. You're changing your entire relationship with money and emotions. You're learning to find satisfaction in delayed gratification instead of instant pleasure. You're rewiring decades of conditioning that taught you spending money equals feeling better. The people who successfully make this transition don't do it through willpower alone. They do it by replacing their spending habits with saving habits that provide similar emotional rewards. Instead of getting excited about buying something new, they get excited about watching their investment balance grow. Instead of feeling good about treating themselves to dinner out, they feel good about adding another $100 to their portfolio. This psychological shift is so powerful that it often happens without people even realizing it. One day they're checking their investment account and they notice they're more excited about a $200 gain in their portfolio than they would be about spending $200 shopping. That's the moment when building wealth stops feeling like a sacrifice and starts feeling like a game they're winning. And here's where the mathematics get absolutely ridiculous in the best possible way. Once you have $20,000 invested, your money is earning about $1,400 per year at 7% returns. That's more than most people spend on coffee, lunch, and impulse purchases combined. Your money is literally funding your lifestyle while continuing to grow. At $50,000 invested, your returns are about $3,500 annually. That's almost $300 per month that you're earning while you sleep. At this point, your investments are generating more passive income than most people save from their active income. You've essentially created a part-time job that never calls in sick, never asks for time off, and works 24 hours a day. So there you have it. Your first $1,000 isn't just harder because of the math. It's harder because you're literally fighting your own brain's ancient programming while building completely new psychological pathways. But once you break through that barrier, compound interest and compound psychology work together to make wealth building feel almost automatic. The choice is yours. You can keep making excuses about why this won't work for you, or you can start that brutal but brief battle against your own impulses. Your future millionaire self is waiting,